Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to drive this brand new 2024 Ram 2500 Power Wagon and my AT4X, which is the HD. Now this is a mismatch, but you have to keep in mind something. Although the Power Wagon has a gas engine, it does have smaller wheels and tires. It also has a 410 and it weighs 1,119 pounds less than the GMC. But this is not all about performance alone. I do want to see the comfort level with the Power Wagon and the GMC. So let's go ahead and get down the road so we can see how these trucks compare. If you are looking at a Power Wagon and maybe the Rebel, one thing you're going to notice right out of the gate is this truck does sit pretty high compared to it, because it does have a 2-inch lift. Now that 2-inch lift could affect fuel mileage, so we'll have to see. But let's go ahead and talk about the performance, and then I'll show you guys the 0 to 60 for the truck. The Power Wagon does have the 6.4 liter V8, and this thing has 410 horsepower that comes on around 5,600 RPMs and 429 pound-feet of torque that comes on around 4,000. Love that they give this plaque to you. Let's see how this truck does with 0 to 60. Here we go.
30, 60, 60.
This Power Wagon is no slouch. I had a 10-speed 6.6 gas from the GM side of the house, and I've tested a couple of trucks, and the best 0 to 60 I was able to get was like 10.5. So even with this gas engine, with the 8-speed transmission known as the 8HP75, I mean, it just rocket ships. Like, I mean, for this size truck, I mean, it still weighs like 7,100 pounds. I think my gas truck was like 7,700 pounds, so it was heavier. But you know, this truck is really well tuned. I think it's because of that lower gearing out back with this 8-speed transmission. Like, they really geared this truck perfectly, because it doesn't feel like you've lost power this high above elevation. These roads are a little bumpy, but once they smoothen out, I mean, you can't really tell this is an HD pickup. I think this is the best riding HD Ram that you can get, with the exception of one with the air suspension. Now the Rebel, you can get air suspension with the Bilsteins, but you can't get a regular Ram built that way. And something else I like about Ram trucks, I just love these gauges. Like, this is like my favorite thing about these trucks. Like, I love talking about this because, you know, I'm hoping that GM, since they're the last ones that haven't done this, like, they would give you just a better readout for the stuff that you like to see. You know, I mean, this is great. And yeah, like I said, like, these 33s, if this had 35s, I think it would ride even better. Like, these Duratracks have a little bit of noise, just a little bit. It's like a small hum, but it's not bad to where like it's unbearable. I think as time goes on, they're gonna get a little bit louder, but it won't be, again, unbearable. We should be to the midpoint in a little bit. But let's go ahead and discuss the payload on this truck and the axle rating. As far as the ratings go for this truck, the axle rating is 4,750 with the rear at 6,200 pounds, and it has an 85/65 gross vehicle weight rating. And here's the payload, 1189. And as I said in the last video I did, this is a purpose-built truck, so it's not really built for towing. It's really 90% off-roading. We just made it to the midpoint, so about 5 miles driven. 11.6 MPG is what we have so far averaged on this drive. Now, I gotta come to a complete stop unless that light turns green, which I don't think it will. 11.9 MPG. Now, there is no stop-start. However, Ram is still using that pitiful MDS, which is the multi-displacement system, or the deactivation of the cylinder. So it'll run on 4 cylinders. I don't know why for the HDs they still use it. I understand the Grand Wagoneer with the 6.4, although they don't really use that engine anymore. I think you can get it as an option, but I'm sure that's going to go away soon. But also, on some of the SRTs they use it still with the 6.4. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I think that system's not going to save you enough gas to make it beneficial. But let's go ahead and take a look at how loud it is in here. So here you go. 64, 65. That's like really quiet. I'm going 70 miles an hour. 66, 67. And then 64 out back. So this is definitely quiet. And it could be the road that I'm driving on. There's not a lot of traffic right now. But this is a comfortable ride in HD, guys. Like, that's why this truck is so, you know, limited on towing, because the suspension is definitely softer. Like, it feels like a half ton. And that's the beauty about the HD Power Wagon, is you have the look of an HD. You can still tow a nice size 6,000-7,000 pound trailer probably. That's probably the max, assuming you're not carrying a lot of people and a lot of gear. But if you're towing a travel trailer, especially something off-road, I mean, this is going to be the best ticket for you. Now, this is where that 410 is going to hurt you at. I'm at about 2,300 RPMs. And the tires are a little bit more louder at 80 mile an hour too. Also, that transmission is running at 162 degrees, so just keep that in mind. I'll try to look at it before we stop and jump into the GMC, that way I have an idea, but it's kind of going up now at this speed. So yeah, that's the only negative about that lower gearing out back, guys. If you want a 410, well, you're gonna pay for that on the fuel side of the house. We are pretty much back at the dealership. We're gonna pretty much stop next to these ProMasters right here. So we're at 13 MPG, 14 miles driven at 12.4 miles. Not bad. And keep in mind, I didn't mention this, but it's 42 degrees outside, so it is pretty cold out. We're driving the GMC next. One thing I like about GM is when you have the heated steering wheel and seats, it literally turns everything on for you when you start the truck. So when it's cold outside, or if it's hot outside, if you remote start it, it'll do it for the Ram, but if you just jump in this truck, it'll basically kick on everything for you. So I do like that, because in the morning time, I just forget that I even have this stuff, and it just turns it on for you. But let's go ahead and talk about the performance of this diesel. Obviously, this is the leader because it has so much horsepower and torque from that forced induction engine. Although this GMC does have a huge advantage over the gas truck, you know, we can't overlook the emissions crap. If you're going off-road, you're probably going to want to get the gas engine. Like, if you're going to be off-road a lot, definitely get the gas engine, because all the emission stuff is going to get clogged up like the DPF, and you don't want that. But 470 horsepower, 975 pound-feet of torque is really good for towing, so you have to keep that in mind. All that power goes through a 10-speed transmission. This truck does have a 342 axe ratio out back. Let's see how it performs. Here we go.
$30. 60.
This truck is insane, and it wasn't that much better too compared to that. I mean, it was definitely better. It was a lot better, actually. It was almost like a full second faster for the most part. But yeah, you know, that gas engine is really good with the 410, and with this truck having so much power, we are above elevation too. I know a lot of people like, how is it that your 0 to 60 times are so much more off compared to car and driver and the manufacturer ratings? I mean, honestly, unless you watch the video of them doing 0 to 60 times, I could care less what their numbers say. You're actually seeing me do it, so I don't care what car and driver has. If they have a video of them getting 5.5 seconds 0 to 60 on a truck or whatever it is, then let me see the video. But until then, it's just their word against mine, and mine is basically saying this is the 0 to 60, you know, at high elevation. And if they're at sea level or something like that, it's going to be a different story. So I did reset the trip 1, so we're going to be able to really get an idea of how this truck performs with the MPG. I have a video that I don't know if I'm going to post before this for real world fuel economy, and yeah, the trip computer is my gospel personally. I know that some people don't like it, but it's actually showing less MPG than the truck actually gets. And that was when I was doing a lot of stop and go, a lot of idling, and it was about an MPG off basically, which you'll see in the video. I may post that video before this one. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about comfort. So this truck, again, it feels heavier than that Power Wagon. That's the very first thing I noticed when I jumped back into my truck. It's so much heavier. I can tell. It's 1,100 pounds heavier, and it's a little bit more. I feel like it feels like a sports car. Having the Multimatic DSSV, it feels like it's dampening the ride. And when you go off road, I feel like when you hit harder bumps, when you are kind of like really getting that suspension travel, you know, going, it softens up. But on the road, it feels like a sports car. That's how it handles. Like even when I turn it, I mean, it just seems like it just has more stability with the Multimatic compared to the Ranchos that you get on the GM pickups. But yeah, we should be to the midpoint here in a second, and I'll show you guys where we are in terms of the fuel mileage. These are the numbers for the GMC. Gross axle up front is going to be 5,600 pounds, and the rear is 6,600 pounds. And this is why the truck has a lot more payload, because of that higher gross vehicle weight rating. And this truck does have impressive towing numbers, as you guys can see below. So pretty much the exact same scenario. Love that. Yep. This is where the diesel wins. You know, I had a gas truck, and I hate to say this, and I'll do a video on this too. I think the gas truck is the way to go for some people. I would say 80% of truck buyers should be buying gas HDs, 100%. But in a lot of cases, there's just obstacles, guys, that you're gonna get into with the gas HDs, and then we'll talk about that. But let's go ahead and see how loud this interior is. So going 70. 65, 67, 68, and 63 out back. Now there's definitely a hum to these tires. These are a wider tire compared to the Ram dirt tracks. These are the Territory MTs. They're like 12 inches wide compared to 11.2 from the Ram, and these are taller. Although taller tires do give you, typically will give you a better ride, but these are some stiff tires, guys. I'm gonna be honest, like the Territory MTs, these are the first time I ever owned these. I have 1,000 miles on them now, and they haven't gotten any louder, but they're definitely stiff sidewalls because I have them at 55 PSI, which is the spec on the door. When I do tow my fifth wheel, I'm gonna max out the tire pressure at 65. And I know it's gonna get stiffer, and I might just keep it there because I don't mind. I don't really care. I mean, honestly, I have seat massagers. There you go. That'll fix my back when I get old, right? So I hope you guys can see the RPMs. We were like about 2,300 RPMs on the Ram. We're probably at 1,800 RPMs with the GM. And that's because of that 342 rear. And that's why getting a diesel makes more sense if you're towing, because you don't need that lower gearing like you did 15, 20 years ago, because you have these 10-speed transmissions. You have the shorter steps between the gears, which is going to help tremendously with giving you the torque that you need to go up a grade or something like that. So yeah, this truck is definitely louder than the Ram on the interior, and I find that the truck rode a lot more comfortable compared to the GMC. Even though this GMC feels nice and secure and heavy, it's definitely stiffer in comparison, especially with that Ram having the coils versus the 5-litres in the rear of this truck. There are just some better advantages if you want a more comfortable riding pickup truck. And it's a shame they don't offer a diesel for that Power Wagon, because, well, when you see the fuel economy, you'll understand why. We're gonna start right here. So we're at 17.2 MPG, 12.5 miles driven. And yeah, it's a no-brainer. You know, it's a no-brainer. So there you have it. The diesel won. And did it really win? I don't know. You have to do the math to really figure it out. But you guys see that? Active grille shutters. They're already closed. Now this truck also has active grille shutters. I want to point that out too, because cold weather does affect gas engines more so than diesels. Like diesels, they do need heat more so. But once they heat up, they're great. And I really enjoyed driving both of these trucks. I think the Power Wagon, if it did have the capability that the other HDs had, it would be a no-brainer for a lot of guys. I think they would sell 10% more Power Wagons. I think they would be higher than that personally. I think it would be like closer to like that 15 to 20% more power wagons if that truck had 3,000 pounds of payload, especially if it could get a Cummins engine. Now the Rebel is a cool attempt on Ram, but I feel like they didn't want to take away from the Power Wagon, and you can really see that in that trim. I think I would prefer the Power Wagon over the Rebel, because if I were to go off-road, I'd definitely take a gas truck. But special shout out to Larry H. Miller here in Sandy, Utah. If you are in the market, this truck is available, and it's spec'd well. If you want a luxury off-roader, this is the competition for the AT4X, guys. It really is, and the price point speaks for itself. If it had a diesel, it would be like $100,000.